Noise department.
A roommate of mine at the time worked for a local brew pub downtown in Salt Lake called Squatters. And it was a small little tiny operation. So I went down there one time and I was checking it out. I was like, man, he's got the boots, he's got the coveralls, he looks official. You know, I'm sitting there on the other side of the glass drinking a beer. I'm like, how do I get this job? He's getting paid for this. You know, I tried to angle, instead of me paying for the beer, I get free beer and they pay me to make it.
This is Thirst Trap, a beverage industry podcast. And I'm your host, Tracy Bradley. And today our guest is Tim Etter. He's the owner of Tenaya Creek Brewing Company, which just happens to be my favorite brewery in Las Vegas.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. But they're not just my favorite brewery, they're also family.
It is a family. You know, everybody, all of our longtime regulars, all of the new patrons, and then even everybody who's ever worked at Tenaya Creek is family. They're part of the family.
And I've never worked there, but I've been your rep and I've been your friend. And
Tracy, you've been around a long time.
I've been around. I've been around for
and not in a bad way, in a very, very good, positive way. You've been with us forever.
So what is new at Tenaya Creek?
We just packaged our Oktoberfest.
Yes.
So it's that time of year where Oktoberfest is upon us. And you say, well, it's August. And it's like, if we don't get a jump on Oktoberfest, nobody wants Novemberfest. So we've got to get going on this.
I remember selling, if we had any leftover Oktoberfest beers in our portfolio, we were supposed to market them as a Märzen and sell them.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, nobody really went for it, but we sure gave it a good try.
We had a supplier, and I want to say it was an import. So it was from Germany. It was like Beck's or somebody, big brand. They had a few Oktoberfest kegs laying around the warehouse in November. So what they did is they pushed it off to the ski area up there, Lee Canyon, then they served it as Winterfest.
Oh, I probably had some of that, actually.
I had a lot of it.
I've spent my fair share at Lee Canyon Ski Resort.
Yeah, it's a fun mountain. And consequently, that was our first account. The first time we sold beer outside of our own place to another retail establishment was Lee Canyon. Before that, it was all, brewed on premises, sold on premises. That's where we got our distribution start.
You're all over the United States now, aren't you?
Well, not all over the United States, but we're all over Nevada.
Well, you're definitely all over Nevada, for sure. I thought we were going to take this nationwide at one point.
Well, we went in, we did. We've ventured into Arizona. We've gone into California. The hardest part about going out of your own market is not knowing what the other market is doing with your brand. So to give you an example, we went to Northern California, Sacramento. We had wide distribution, not in the Bay Area, but pretty much all of Northern California. Did great on the first order. Second order was half of what they ordered the first time, and then, on down the line. And come to find out, when we launched in Northern California, there were 5 breweries that opened the same week.
Oh.
And so that was at the time when everybody in the craft beer world was going hyper local. And, a brand from another state didn't do as well as the new shiny toy.
Yeah, I can see where that might be a challenge then. For sure.
It was difficult. We threw everything against the wall to see what would stick, and we had to cut our losses and pull back.
Fair enough. We've got the anniversary party coming up in November.
November 4th.
November 4th. On my dad's birthday?
We had to move it up because when we normally do the anniversary party, it's always the Saturday between the 2 openings at our location, each of our locations. So the first time in 1999 when we opened, it was November 15th, and then we moved. 7 years ago, we've been in the location we're in now. And when did we open the front door? We opened the front door down there on November 23rd. So it was the Monday before Thanksgiving that year. in 2015.
Mhm.
So there's always a Saturday in between those two dates, and that's when we chose to do our anniversary party. This year, November 18th is the day of the F1 race.
Right. Yes.
So we kind of ruled that out and said, the streets are going to be closed, traffic's going to be mayhem, everybody wants to stay home, nobody wants to go near the strip or anywhere downtown. So we opted to move it up. Went the Saturday before, that's November 11th, Veterans Day.
Mhm. Oh.
And it's a 3-day weekend, and a lot of people go out of town. So let's move it up again. November 4th, which is a Saturday.
Do we have can you give us any hints as to all the fun things on draft that we'll be tasting there?
Well, I can definitely tell you what we've done in the past. Right now it's still up in the air. We plan for it the day before. We're still fine tuning a lot of the details. But, we procure a lot of special one-off beers, things that we haven't tasted before, let alone any of our regulars or anybody else in the public. And we kind of do our own tap takeover, if you're familiar with that.
Just a little. I think I've done a couple of them at your place.
You know anything about those?
I do.
Well, this is our tap takeover where all of the taps are Tanea's. We don't have any guest taps. So 28 faucets on tap at Tenea Creek. They're all ours. And as well, you can imagine most of them are stuff, that we've never done before. So we'll be filling the list with Tenea beers.
Well, I can't wait.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Because I missed it last year.
Every year, it's awesome.
I didn't I didn't know about it.
Oh.
And then that was the same day. Then I had committed to a Friendsgiving.
Oh, right.
At my daughter Taryn's house. So yeah,
this kind of frees things up a little bit because the week of Thanksgiving is kind of tough for a lot of people because of before and then after and during that. It's difficult to kind of make plans, especially this far out, and if you've got friends or family in town, or if you're going to do something, that takes priority over what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So I think by moving it up to November 4th, I think everybody's going to have a chance to come.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the guys in the brewery are doing this year.
Cool.
That's always just so much fun.
Oh, it's a blast every year. Every year, we even surprise ourselves with some of the things that we do.
So you are from Utah and you started out in a brewery in Utah, correct?
Yeah, and I can give you a quick summary of that. Each time I tell the story, it keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And it's so I was originally born here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, okay.
And I've been a lifelong resident, went to high school, graduated high school, went to the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. It was kind of a eye opener. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what last call was until I moved up there. And
I think we've all been there.
So you got to plan ahead. And then another thing you got to plan ahead for if you move to Salt Lake City or anywhere in Utah is everything shuts down on Sunday, even the liquor stores. So you got to plan ahead, and you got to, take that into consideration when, you make your plans. All right, Sunday, liquor stores are closed. I better go on Saturday before they shut down. I moved up there while they still had mini bottles at restaurants, at a lot of bars did this too. Although the bars started going to a metered pour, it's a 1 ounce shot.
Yeah.
And they had to abide by that. And they had an audit internally and the state would do it. But back when I first moved there, they had these airline mini bottles and they sold you those. And you had to, they sold you the mixer too. So you had to mix your own drink at the table. And a lot of that changed, especially once the Olympics came in 2002. They amended a lot of those laws. And I think even since then, the state of Utah has gone to a system where in a restaurant, the bartender behind the bar has to go behind a vestibule to make the cocktail. So there can't be any mixing of drinks out in the open where impressionable youth might be able to see this. So, and usually it's the chains, but it's all restaurants. You have to be either if you're serving alcohol in the state of Utah, you have to be licensed as a restaurant or licensed as a drinking establishment. The drinking establishment doesn't need to serve food, and there it's just a bar. But a restaurant that serves alcohol, they have to abide by this rule where the bartender goes behind and mixes cocktail. They call it the iron curtain. Well, actually, not the iron, the Zion curtain.
The Zion
The
curtain.
Zion curtain. And so they go back behind this curtain, mix their drinks, and then they bring it out to the table. Um, so, anyways, those are the rules now. They've even got stricter driving rules.
Oh yeah.
It's 0.05 now,
Mhm.
so that's pretty much one beer and you can't drive. Um, I moved up there to go to University of Utah. The first major that I had was pre-architecture. I wanted to learn, become an architect, basically. Well, that went out the window after the first year, and then I switched majors probably about 3 or 4 more times to, like, engineering. I wanted mechanical engineering, civil engineering, structural engineering, couldn't decide on any of that. A roommate of mine at the time worked for a local, brew pub downtown in Salt Lake called Squatters, and it was a small little tiny operation, only had, 7-barrel fermenters and 7-barrel brew house. It was small. And so I went down there one time and I was checking it out. I was like, "Man, he's got the boots, he's got the coveralls, he looks official," and he had the tank open, he's cleaning one of the fermenters, and, I'm sitting there on the other side of the glass drinking a beer. I'm like, "How do I get this job? He's getting paid for this." So, I tried to angle instead of me paying for the beer, I get free beer and they pay me to make it. And so, long story short, it's already too long. I took what I learned at the University of Utah. I never even graduated, but I went to the University of Davis in California. They have a program for fermentation science
Yep.
because of the viticulture, Napa and Sonoma. They decided to expand into beer making, and it's basically the science behind making beer specifically. It's anaerobic respiration, which is all alcohol, but specifically, how do you make beer? And uh, came back to Salt Lake, and one of my other friends was starting a brewery, and I was like, "Well, cool, so, count me in." And he knew that I went to Davis and said, "Okay, all right, we'll hire you eventually." He partnered up with another guy that had similar business plans. They were comparing their business plans and said, "Okay, all right, let's go forward together." And they decided to call it Great Basin Brewing Company. Well, there's already a Great Basin Brewing Company in Sparks, Nevada.
Yes.
So they had to change their name. And then they decided on Uinta, which is a mountain range in Utah. And so we're gonna make this brewery. It's called Uinta. And my buddy was like, "Hey, we really want you to, come join us," And I was like, "Okay, all right." I'm young and impressionable at that point, and was helping him out with everything. It was a real hands-on operation in the beginning because we couldn't afford a lot of things. So started out with the tanks, got we did most everything ourselves, had some plumbers, electrician friends. Then they kind of finished their job and finished their work. We got licensed to brew for the first time. It's like, great, this is what we've been waiting for and working for. And I'm up on a ladder one day and I'm like, "Hey, if I fall off this ladder, am I covered?" You guys kind of pay for like me twisting my ankle or whatever worse. And that was a wake up call for them. And they started payroll the next week. So I was the first employee at this brewery in Salt Lake City called Uinta.
I have not been to Uinta. I have been to Squatters
Oh,
and
downtown.
Wasatch.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been to the brew pubs. Yeah, I won a sales contest. I'm going to say 2015, maybe 2016, possibly. So I went and toured the brewery and made friends with the guys in the brewery.
When you see one brewery, you've seen them all. However, it's kind of like local culture. Like each employee contributes to what that brewery is all about. And all across the country, you can go and I visited a lot of breweries, and there's a lot of breweries that I can't visit because I don't even know they exist yet. But a lot of these older breweries that have been around for a long time, you get to know the people who work there, and
Mhm.
it's kinda like their signature almost,
Yeah.
it's like the people who work there make the place what it is, and it almost has an influence on the flavor of the beer.
Well, yeah, I mean, just seeing the brewery, seeing I mean, it's so interesting for me because I know your brewery inside and out, but then going and traveling elsewhere and touring other breweries, it's they're all different. Everybody has their own different style. Everybody's unique. And I'm not saying that it's one way or the highway. It's just whatever works for you in this business, pretty
Absolutely,
much.
absolutely, and that's one thing, you'll never hear me talk bad about another brewer just because of that very thing, everybody does everything differently, and
Yeah.
it's kinda like, "Alright, well, that's how they do it." And so, you meet somebody from Tennessee, it's like, "Oh, how are you guys doing it?" "Well, this is what we're doing." And I'm like, "Oh, I never thought of that." So that sometimes you can bounce ideas off of them and, you can improve your own situation.
Right. Absolutely. So then you left Uinta.
Left Uinta, decided to move back home. I lived in Salt Lake City for 9 years and, got the idea as a family operation that, "Hey, you know what? We can start a brew pub here in Las Vegas, Nevada." And, settled on this piece of land up in the northwest part of town, across the street from the hospital at Mountain View. And, it was on the street Tenaya, so we decided to call the brewery Tenaya. And it's like,
And
"Well, wait a second. We can't just call it Tenaya." It's like, "Alright, well, Tenaya Creek, it's an Ansel Adams photo, and it's pretty famous." "Okay, will anybody get it?" "No." So we had to explain, through the process of education what Tenaya Creek was, Tenaya Creek meant. Even put a framed picture right by the front door up there just to kinda remind people that's why we're Tenaya Creek.
that's good that I mean, if you know photography and you're familiar with his work, then you'll get
Absolutely.
it. And if you
And it's not one of his more famous ones, so it's kind of like it flies under the radar as far as, Ansel Adams. Most people see the Half Dome or, one of his other more famous ones, but Tenaya Creek is, kinda unique.
and then you opened the original location in '99,
99, November of '99, the 15th, I think that was a Monday.
and you
We've been
still
going ever since.
you basically have almost everybody that started.
Well,
Well, you have
yes and
a
no.
lot of your people did.
Yes. Most of our staff today has been with us since the old location, then they decided to move down
Mhm.
and said, "I can't," that and it's one of those things, people have their own situations to, you know, you buy a car, you start a family, you buy a house, and it's like, "All right, well, who's coming with us?" Pretty much everybody.
Mhm. I don't know a lot of people that didn't come with you.
Our business, Tenaya Creek's been through a lot of different evolutions,
Mhm.
so to speak. We started out, opened the doors, had a brand new building. We're like, all right, we're going to emphasize the food, have a kitchen, a nice, menu. We're going to bring in seafood from Hawaii. And I think, a lot of people that lived around that area, we had a 5 mile radius of regulars. It was great at first, but like at that time, restaurants have about 6 months of being the new person on the block where everybody's gonna come try you out. After
Right.
6 months, you have to change, adapt, or go out of business.
Right.
So that's when the real fun started.
I remember when you had food.
The food was good, but it ultimately, we made the decision and said, "Why did we get into this business?" We're brewers, we're not, restaurant. I'd never worked in a restaurant in my life. So, it was kind of an eye opener, sink or swim moment. And I was like, all right, I know what I don't like. I don't like the food business.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, and then you've been in the new location. This will be your 8th
This will
anniversary.
be our 8th year in
Can't believe
operation at
it's
the new
been 8
place,
years.
2015, the 23rd of November.
Yeah, Anthony and I were just talking about that last week when I was in there.
Yeah,
About,
time flies.
you've
Time
had
flies.
yeah, I mean, like, you've been in the building for 10 years, but open for business going on it'll be 8 in November, and I just it really does fly
Time flies.
from the time where
And we've been constant, a lot of, and maybe that's why people are attracted to us is because, we are constant and reliable. And a lot of things have changed. I mean, we went through a pandemic.
Right.
We had to shut down.
I know. I came and visited and bought beer, but
You did the curbside thing?
I did the curbside thing.
Oh man, yeah, those were some tough days, some dark days too.
Yeah, and you had to have a hot dog or something with it or whatever.
Yeah,
So you got back into the food business briefly.
we did, and I didn't want to, but the city made us do it. So, but once I realized what the city was trying to do, City of Las Vegas really wanted us to open and said, "Here's the way you can do it. You have to serve a food item. We're deeming you as essential. If people are going to be out and about, then they can swing by the brewery. They just can't come inside and they can't get out of their cars.
Right.
They just do the curbside model. We set up cones and a driveway for them to come through, and we put the beer in their trunk or whatever. A lot of people bought kegs. Uh, a lot of people had kegerators that they invested in and said,
Right.
if I'm going to stay at home, I'm going to drink beer, and that's what they did. People that would usually buy a 6-pack or 2 were buying a case or 2.
Yeah, that was me.
And it was a great way for people to try different beers that they're not normally accustomed to, because everybody was out of their normal routine. When you're forced to stay home for as long as we did, you're not going to work, you're not driving, you're not, your routine is basically gone. And so you had to come up with a new routine. It's like, well, I'm going to go down to the brewery and get a couple cases
Absolutely. Yeah. We
and mix them up. I
did
want
it.
to try
I
them
mixed
all.
them up. We did Singing Frog. We did all of them. And no matter what, my all-time favorite Tenaya Creek beer, Bonanza Brown.
Well, funny thing about that is we've been brewing that since day one, and it's one of my favorites too. You have to go back to your founding days and say, okay, well, what got us off the ground, and what how did we make it for so many years? And that beer right there has probably been our flagship.
It's my favorite. I
A lot
I
of people's
I
favorite too.
always I try the new ones, and I try the offline series when I'm in, and I try everything, and that one's still my favorite. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the offline series, they do get very creative, and I am a fan. There's one that I've been dying to try with grapefruit in it, and I can't have grapefruit, so kind of bumps me out a little.
Well, we do others.
I know, and I've tried those.
I don't even know what's coming next. It's like you see it up on the board and you're like, oh, wow, I got to try that.
I hate when I'm in there and then there's just a banner across it that says "Coming soon."
Coming soon. It really pisses off the people from out of town, because they're just like, I'm not going to be here.
Right.
Can I just try it?
Can't
And
you
it's like,
just-
no.
So, Bonanza Brown is my favorite. What's yours?
Well, it is like choosing between your children. Probably the most straightforward and diplomatic answer I could give to that question is whatever beer that is in front of me at the time. And usually these days, especially during the summertime, it's those lighter lagers,
Yeah.
the blonde ales, blonde lagers that, just they're easy to drink and you can have more than one.
A nice porch pounder, if you will.
Well, like a few years back, in fact, it's been more than a few years. The style or the description, is lawnmower beer.
Yeah, we
You're
do.
going outside,
Yep.
you got to do work, chores or whatever, and you have a beer afterwards. It's a lawnmower beer.
Yep. Oh, first beer ever. What was your gateway beer?
Ever. Well, ever, you're probably going to have to go back to when my dad drank beer, and he'd come home from work, and this is back when people read the newspaper, and we'd get an afternoon newspaper. He'd get off work, come home, sit down in his chair. Nobody else could sit there. And he'd start reading the newspaper and have a Coors Banquet.
All right.
And so I got to try this, and that Coors Banquet tasted like gold. I never tasted anything so good in my entire life, short life at the time. And it's one of those things where, all right, I'm going to hatch a plan where I can get more of these. And, I don't want to sound like an alcoholic, but, beer became my life quickly after that.
My dad wasn't a big beer drinker, but my grandpa was. So he drank PBR.
PBR is religious. A lot of people swear by it, and I'm known to go to the altar myself. But I think PBR has a place in history. It's a brand that is iconic, and a lot of people. It's changed hands numerous times, but the label's the same. And everywhere you go, that PBR just stares at you, and you know exactly what's in the can.
What was your first craft beer?
Well, it might have been when I was in Salt Lake City.
Brew.
Yeah, they were. It's come up with different names, and craft beer is the one that finally stuck.
Yeah.
They're microbrew beers, and before that, you had to go to a brew pub. But it's probably Wasatch, up in Park City. When I first moved up to Salt Lake City, went up to Park City just because the people that I met when I first attended the university are like, "Oh, you got to go to Park City." Especially this time of year, all the leaves are changing and it's beautiful up there. Trees are red and orange and yellow. I was like, all right, I got to see this. And the brew pub in Park City is at the top of Main Street, about 7,000 feet elevation. So it's kind of a mountain brewery and the whole mystique.
Beautiful.
And everything about it was like, all right, this place is fabled. Went in there. I wasn't even old enough to drink yet, but had one anyways. And they made a beer called Autumn Bock.
Yep.
And it was their seasonal for, and it kind of just like our Oktoberfest, they brewed it around Labor Day and then pushed it out right after that because fall happens up there a lot sooner than it does here. So you can imagine they got to get a jump on the season before the snow starts falling. And then, that it was a darker beer, and I didn't really know anything about darker beers or even hops at the time, but this Bock, Autumn Bock was, the first craft beer that I've ever had, and at 3.2. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Utah has a law where all the beer made in the state has to be 3.2 by weight, which is 4% by volume." Most breweries go by volume now, so 4%. Couldn't make it any stronger than that, unless you bottled it and packaged it and sold it to the liquor store. But if you put it on draft and you sold it by the keg, had to be 4%. They've since raised it to 5%. But back then, it was 4%. And I had this dark beer at 4%. And I said, God, this is flavorful. What's going on here? This is way better than the light lager we've been drinking so much of in high school.
Right.
We kept Keystone in business. But, that was my first one. And it kind of really steered me to the direction I'm in today.
My gateway microbrew was Pyramid Hefeweizen.
Very, very popular.
In the early
very
90s,
popular.
yeah.
We based our Hefeweizen, which we still brew today. That was the one of the first 4 beers that we made, that Hefeweizen, kind of after Widmer, if you're familiar with that brand.
Very.
Widmer was the one that we wanted to emulate and try to make a Hefeweizen taste just like that. It's hard to keep it cloudy. It would clear up.
Yeah.
We struggled with that for a while, but if you go back in time, the Hefeweizen was kind of a call. People would ask for a Hefeweizen. They didn't really ask for a brand or anything. But Pyramid and Widmer were the ones that were most popular at the time.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for us today. But Tim, thank you so much for stopping by.
I'll see you down at the creek and we'll drink a beer.
I'm Tracy Bradley, and that's the Thirst Trap Podcast. Produced and edited by Gonzo Greg Spillane for Noise Department. Our theme music is composed and performed by Jose Torres. Please like and subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcasts and share with your friends and associates in the beverage industry or anybody who drinks things. You can always visit and contact me at thirsttrappodcast.com, and you can find links to all the socials there as well. Till next time, cheers!